Hi, I'm Angie Hicks, co-founder of Angie. From roof repair to emergency plumbing and more, when you use Angie for your home projects, you know all your jobs will be done well. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find a pro for your project at Angie.com.
Hello and welcome into this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball. Hi, everyone. It's kind of echoey where I am. Sorry for that. I'm also alone. Doubly sorry for that. But welcome into this week's episode of the official podcast of your favorite consortium of leagues. I don't really know if consortium is the right word. Thanks for hanging out with us. I'm Tyler Mon. We got a totally different episode in this week's edition of the Show Before the Show. You will hear from all three of your fearless leaders of this now over decade-old minor league baseball podcast individually, because I am here in San Juan, Puerto Rico, Benjamin Hill in New York City, and Samuel C. Dykstra, actually in process, literally right now, as I'm recording this, Sammy is flying from Arizona to Florida as part of his spring training coverage here in 2026. So we're all alone together, or something like that, as we welcome you in. And we thank you for joining us, as you always do on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. We've got so much to talk about in the world of baseball and minor league baseball. You'll hear from me. I'm going to go through some World Baseball Classic stuff. Then you will hear from Ben. And coming up a little while later on, Sammy will update you on what's been going on with his trips. Sam, as noted, has been in Arizona and now headed to Florida for all of his prospect coverage for Pipeline. If you do not already, by the way, follow Sam on Instagram. You really should, because he's just such a good photographer and he's the greatest human being that you're ever going to know also. But like, Sam posts such good stuff, really great pictures and videos and everything. You can find him on Instagram, and you should do that, because he's Sam Dykstra and he's the greatest. Benjamin Hill, also the greatest, will come up here in a little bit. We're just a couple of weeks away from opening day. So some storylines, of course, from the business of minor league baseball, and Ben's Biz Banter, as always, presented by Circle K, the official convenience store of minor league baseball. It's Ben's Biz Self Banter this week, I guess. Here we are. We are closing in on the kickoff to the 2026 minor league baseball season, and so excited for that. But there is so much going on around the world of baseball, including right here in beautiful San Juan, Puerto Rico, one of the oldest cities in the Americas, where I was lucky enough over the last week to broadcast games for the 2026 Pool A of the World Baseball Classic. And man, what a blast. Canada wins the group. Canada rallies from a 1-1 start to beat Puerto Rico and then Cuba in its final two games. And via the head-to-head tiebreaker over Puerto Rico, moves on as the top seed from Group A in the World Baseball Classic, which is very exciting for Canada. This is the first time in Canadian baseball history that they have advanced past the first round of the Classic. So awesome stuff for Canada. Puerto Rico finishes second. What an incredible job. But this Puerto Rico general manager, Carlos Beltran, their entire roster assembly staff, to put together a team that, minus its big three, Javier Baez and Francisco Lindor and Carlos Correa and Kike Hernandez, by the way, who just got to hang out in Puerto Rico, in San Juan, and be part of the festivities with the team, even though he wasn't on the roster, which is amazing, coming back from his elbow injury. They still put together a team that just absolutely romanced this island and all these fans over the last week, and they are headed on to the World Baseball Classic quarterfinals. So today we have quarterfinal 1 and 2. You're listening to this possibly on Friday. It's when this episode drops, as the kids say. 6:30 Eastern Time. Pool C runner-up Korea will meet the winner of Pool D in Miami. That's the Dominican Republic. And then a little while later on, Pool A winner Canada is the home team against Pool B runner-up the United States. And that is because in tomorrow's quarterfinal, Pool B winner Italy, unbeaten Italy, Vinny Pasquantino, Francisco Cervelli, the manager, that Italian squad, they will play host to Pool A runner-up Puerto Rico. That's an afternoon contest on Saturday at 2 o'clock local time in Houston, Texas at Central Time. And then the night game is Venezuela, the Pool D runner-up, against reigning World Baseball Classic champion Japan. We've got a Dream Final 8, which is going to lead us to a Dream Final 4. This is such an incredible kickoff to this 2026 Classic to be through this first round, and so excited to see what comes over the next few days in Miami and in Houston. And then the semis and final coming up the 15th, 16th, and 17th at Lone Depot Park in Miami, and the 2026 World Baseball Classic champion will be crowned on March 17th at the home of the Miami Marlins. And who knows? I mean, you can make a case for any one of these teams to be there at the end. Canada has played some of its best baseball that we've ever seen in international competition, especially with the way they dominated in that win over Cuba. Held on for a 1-0 win over Puerto Rico, which enabled them to clinch the top spot in Group A via that head-to-head tiebreaker. But Puerto Rico has played exceedingly well, and they will be the team taking on, I guess you could call them the Cinderella story in Italy, the Pool B winners who knocked off the United States, knocked off Mexico. They finished Pool B at 4-0. Pool C, always going to be a tight matchup between Japan, Korea, Chinese Taipei, Australia. Czechia was in that as well. And it is, by the way, Czechia. In case you have heard it pronounced other ways, it is Czechia, not Czechia. Czechia, which is the name that the Czech Republic now goes by for international sports. That team, as part of that jam-packed Pool C, Japan makes it through unbeaten. They really, they had to fight to get past, especially Australia, and despite the final score, Czechia. That game was going into the 7th inning, scoreless, and a pretty impressive run by Andres Satoria, the electrical engineer, not just an electrician, Andres Satoria, the electrical engineer for Czechia, who departed that game to a standing ovation from the Tokyo Dome crowd. I love this event, man. I don't know if you've been able to tell over the last decade of this podcast how obsessed I am with the World Baseball Classic. Yeah, pretty great. So Japan will square off with Venezuela, which was so close to winning Pool D. They lost in their final matchup of pool play to the Dominican Republic. So the DR, that loaded lineup and terrific pitching staff, they are host to Korea today. First time for Korea in the quarterfinals since 2009. They made it all the way to the Final Four in 2006, and then they played for the championship in 2009. Had not advanced past the first round ever since. So we got some historic runs. Puerto Rico is trying to make it back to the semifinals for the third time in the last 4 classics. Korea is trying to make it there for the first time since 2009. The Dominican Republic bounced early last year, or last edition of the Classic. They are in the quarters now. Italy is on this dream run. They made it to the quarterfinals last time, but ended up losing, did not make it to Miami. So an opportunity for them coming up tomorrow against Puerto Rico. Venezuela, like I said, held tough against the DR. They have the tall task of going against Japan in that quarterfinal, but probably the quarterfinal matchup that everybody is most anticipating is a rematch of the gold medal game in both hockey finals in the Olympics just last month, the United States and Canada. I don't think it would have shocked anybody if you said that the United States and Canada would meet up in the quarters. I do think it would shock people if you told them Canada was going to be the pool winner and the United States was going to be the pool runner-up. And obviously, with the situation with going into the final day, needing Italy to win, not the way the U.S. anticipated getting into the quarters here in 2026. But they are there. They will get a chance behind Logan Webb to take on Cal Quantrill in that quarterfinal matchup. And Canada playing for its first ever trip to the semifinals here in the 2026 World Baseball Classic. We had just an incredible slate of games at San Juan's here on Bithorn Stadium over our 6 days calling games, myself and Ryan Rowland-Smith. And undoubtedly, the biggest moment was the walk-off home run for Darell Hernaiz from Puerto Rico, in a circumstance in which his team was battling and finding themselves coming back from a run deficit in the 9th inning and then coming back from a run deficit to tie things in the bottom of the 10th. We had a couple of rain delays. We had all kinds of, I don't want to call it chaos because we had the pool of chaos back in 2023 when all of our teams finished even at 2-2. And we had to go to all those tiebreakers. But it was pretty chaotic, the finish to that game, and a moment that Darell Hernaiz and Puerto Rican baseball will never forget as they rallied for that walk-off win over Panama. And I do want to go back to that game-winning at-bat for Darell Hernandez. And we're going to air some of the coverage from that at-bat because you might have heard the walk-off home run call, but I just want to give you what Ryan Rowland-Smith and I were talking about throughout that at-bat. Tied up in the bottom of the 10th inning. Panama had scored a run in the top half of the 10th, and it looked as though they were poised to capture that game, which would have been a monster upset, put Panama right in the running to not only move on, but potentially win the opening group in the 2026 Pool A. And instead, Puerto Rico gets this dream sequence to end that contest in which Darell Hernandez comes through in a moment where if the big three for Puerto Rico were not excluded from this roster for their various reasons, and so much of that conversation obviously was about the insurance issue and these guys being unable to get approved. Really only one of those guys ended up actually being an insurance issue, and that was Carlos Correa. But Javier Baez, a positive drug test for marijuana from the last World Baseball Classic, which is governed by the rules of international baseball, not by the suspension rules of Major League Baseball. So he was not able to participate. And Francisco Lindor ended up having surgery, so he was not available. So you have a guy in Darell Hernandez who would not have even been on this roster, potentially, but almost certainly would not have been in that spot in the bottom of the 10th inning if those guys were not on that roster. We had already had a walk-off home run earlier in the day, Ozzy Albies lifting the Kingdom of the Netherlands to a 4-3 win in the bottom of the 9th inning over Nicaragua. And then Darell Hernandez, on a day in which we saw the first World Baseball Classic walk-off homer ever, after 20 years of this competition, Darell Hernandez decided to add a second one. This was our coverage on Saturday night, and that historic moment for Puerto Rican baseball.
To challenge that, right? Hopefully there's a couple more angles in the reviewing it to maybe potentially overturn it in a game like this.
Hernandez takes a mighty hack and fouls that one back. Darell is an athletics prospect. 96 games with AAA Las Vegas last year, 305 hitter, 807 OPS. Also 51 games up at the big league level, 231 hitter, the OPS under 600. He does possess the ability to leave the yard. A couple of homers at the major league level last season, and this is the guy who, watching this World Baseball Classic in spring training in his hotel room in 2023, told himself, I want to be part of the next one. And here he is on the biggest stage in international baseball. And the 1-2 crushed left field line, deep, Puerto Rico, increíble! In 20 years of the World Baseball Classic, we had never had a walk-off home run. And on this day, we've had two. Ozzy Albies this afternoon for the Kingdom of the Netherlands. And Darell Hernandez tonight for the home team in San Juan. And Puerto Rico is 2-0.
And Tyler, you just got done saying that he was dreaming of this moment in his hotel room in 2023. One day I'm going to represent my country at the World Baseball Classic. Well, three years later, the guy who hit, by the way, just 2 home runs in 200 plate appearances in 2025 as an athletic, comes up huge here in the 10th inning and walks it off here in San Juan. Unbelievable.
unbelievable. I mean, just a truly remarkable moment for Darell Hernaiz, a guy who last season got a chance to make an impact at the major league level. And, he's still just 24 years old, which is pretty cool. Darell Hernaiz is now and forever a legend on this island and in his hometown. He is from San Juan originally. He was a fifth-round draft pick of the Orioles back in 2019. Made his major league debut in 2024 with the Athletics. He played in 48 games that year. He played in 51 games last season. He's put up outstanding numbers with AAA Las Vegas in each of the last 3 seasons, but to be able to get that big league shot and now to try to ride off of this momentum with that walk-off homer, just so excited for Darell Hernaiz. The celebration of that walk-off was unlike anything I've ever seen in my entire life. They're FaceTiming Francisco Lindor in front of the dugout. And Kike Hernandez bringing the phone out to Darell Hernaiz while he's in the middle of an interview. And Darell Hernaiz saying, like, that guy was my idol. And now I'm FaceTiming him after a walk-off home run. Just the most incredible baseball scenes that you will ever encounter. So huge congratulations to Puerto Rico and to Canada for coming out of Pool A, but also out of Pool B to Italy and the United States, Pool C to Japan and Korea, and Pool D to the Dominican Republic and Venezuela. We are set for a fun one here to conclude the 2026 World Baseball Classic. I'm still in San Juan, but flying to Miami tomorrow, just going to be there as a fan, the little baseball Forrest Gump life that I try to live. My dad will be there. One of my college best friends is going to meet us there. So we'll have some fun. You can check out my Instagram at TylerMonPXP to follow along with that if you so choose. And man, there's nothing better than the World Baseball Classic. The tagline for 2026 is expect everything, and it could not be more accurate. The 2026 World Baseball Classic has already delivered. We had a 17-year-old get Aaron Judge to grind into a double play. We had Darell Hernaiz walk-off homer. We've had Italy taking espresso shots in the dugout. We got Canada moving on to the quarters for the first time in history. We've got Korea finally making it out of the first round, something they have been dreaming of doing for the last 3-4 classics. Japan looking so formidable as always. The United States squeaking through with some help from Italy, which won Pool B, and Venezuela. I mean, they're always going to be there, playing tough in the end against the DR. But this Dominican Republic team, just keep an eye on them. They've got obviously a tough one. They're all tough ones in the World Baseball Classic. But tonight against Korea, if they make it through that, they will square off with the winner of the United States and Canada in semifinal number 1 coming up on the 15th. What a dream scenario for all of these teams headed toward the conclusion of this 2026 World Baseball Classic. So that's segment number 1 on this week's episode of the show before the show. And you only have to listen to me ramble on my own for so much of this episode. For now, we will step aside and we will set it up for your bud and ours, Benjamin Hill, Ben's Biz Self-Banter this week, presented by Circle K, the official convenience store of minor league baseball. After the break, it's Benjamin Hill next on this week's episode of the show before the show.
Hello and welcome to a special edition of Ben's Biz Banter presented by Circle K. I am Ben Hill, a.k.a. Ben's Biz. You may know me from the Baseball Traveler newsletter, but you may not know me on this podcast as a man who is alone, but yet that is my circumstance today. Sam is in Arizona, covering spring training, communing with the cacti. I assume it's the cacti. I mean, that's plural for cactus, right? And he's surely among more than one cactus. Cacti. I stand by it. Tyler, of course, has been calling Pool A games in the World Baseball Classic. And, I texted him something similar to this the other day, but I've really enjoyed listening to Tyler call WBC games this week. And, I talk to Tyler every week on this podcast, obviously. I've known him for well over a decade at this point. So his voice is familiar to me. And he's just Tyler, a guy I do a podcast with. And turning on those games, it was like I was a fan watching a game, and suddenly Tyler took on this whole new context. And I was like, wow, this guy is really, really good at calling these games, and he has such a passion and knowledge of the World Baseball Classic and international baseball in general, and he's super prepared, and he had his iconic increíble, I can't even say any Spanish words correctly, but you probably heard his iconic call when Puerto Rico had the walk-off victory last week. And Tyler Mon has been all over the baseball world. And we get to have him on this podcast each and every week. Don't take it for granted, folks. He's a real professional out there. Anyhow, I thought I'd banter at you just like I do every week. I'd like to banter with you, but I have to banter at you because I'm alone here. And what do I want to talk about? Well, in the latest edition of my newsletter, the Baseball Traveler newsletter, I just because I wanted to, before the season really ramps up, I wanted to get something like this in while I still could. I wrote an article just about 6 ballparks that I miss, 6 minor league ballparks that are no longer with us. And the ones I chose for the article, and I could have chosen any number of ballparks I've visited through the years, were Adelanto Stadium. It was known by different names through the years, but it finished its era as Adelanto Stadium in Adelanto, California, home of the High Desert Mavericks. It was hailed as minor league baseball's crown jewel when it opened in 1991. 2 decades later, it had lost its luster, in part due to an economic downturn in the high desert area that caused attendance and upkeep to decline. But it had its run, and it was a special place to see a game, and high elevation, fierce winds, and an arid climate resulted in plenty of high-scoring games. You might remember in 2013, the Mavericks beat the Lancaster Jethawks 30-8. It felt like a ballpark in the middle of nowhere. I remember visiting in 2011 and being surprised that it had been only around for 20 years because it seemed far older, weather-beaten and kind of out of time, out of place. What else did I list in this article? Greer Stadium in Nashville, Tennessee, home of the Nashville Sounds from 1978 to 2014. It's right near Fort Negley, a Civil War fort, and south of Nashville proper. And I really liked visiting that ballpark in a funky, ramshackle charm, and faded blue seats, and of course the legendary guitar scoreboard. There's a new guitar scoreboard at the Sounds Stadium now, but the original guitar scoreboard was really great, a funky feature in a funky ballpark. Jim Perry Stadium in Bowie's Creek, North Carolina. Anyone remember this? The most obscure minor league baseball team of the 21st century? The Bowie's Creek Astros. They played there for 2 seasons in Bowie's Creek, North Carolina, 2017 and 2018, while waiting for the ballpark in Fayetteville to be built. And they chose Bowie's Creek, of course, because it was home to Campbell University and the Fighting Camels baseball teams. So the Bowie's Creek Astros played in the Carolina League for 2 seasons at Jim Perry Stadium on the campus of Campbell University. And I remember visiting that ballpark in 2017, and there was maybe 100 fans there, if that. There was almost no auxiliary entertainment aspects of the game. It was quiet. Felt like you could hear a pin drop, so to speak, when the game was going on. And very surreal to think now that there was 2 seasons of minor league baseball on the campus of Campbell University. Kendrick Legion Field in Helena, Montana, home of the Helena Phillies / Gold Sox / Brewers from 1978 to 2018. Really glad I got to go to that one. I think I visited in its penultimate season in 2017. A wooden grandstand, a treacherous rooftop press box, dugouts that resembled dank basement layers, concessions served out of a small barn-like structure, and Mount Helena looming mightily beyond right field. Just an out-of-time sort of baseball game. I remember walking into the ballpark and walking past the bullpen and seeing a bunch of bicycles chained up to a chain-link fence. And those are the bicycles ridden by the players who would come from their host family's house to the ballpark on bikes. You just don't see that kind of thing in minor league baseball anymore. Finally, Rosenblatt Stadium. You probably heard of this one. Home of the Omaha Royals as well as the College World Series from 1969 to 2010. In 2010, that was the first season I did baseball minor league ballpark road trips. I went to the final game in Rosenblatt Stadium history. There were 24,000 fans there, something like that. Party atmosphere. A lot of fans were also very sad to say goodbye to that place. And yes, a capacity of 23,500 officially in a minor league ballpark. So, they needed that capacity for the College World Series, but it was tough for the Omaha Royals operationally, because even if they drew a good crowd of, 8,000-9,000 people, the ballpark still looked more than half empty. Not to mention the fact that the team would have to go on a very long road trip every single season to accommodate the ballpark being used for the College World Series. What else can I banter at you about I'm all alone. I feel self-conscious. I'm in a conference room at the office. Well, of course, we got a couple new alternate identities for you. I always try to keep you loyal listeners up to date on that. We talked a couple weeks ago about the Akron Rubber Ducks and how they had a Chip Dippers identity inspired by Lawson's Chip Dip, a favorite in Akron. Well, now we have another dip-related alternate identity, this time in Tulsa, Oklahoma, home of the Drillers. They will be playing this season on select dates as the Ranch Dippers, because apparently in Tulsa, ranch is a very big thing. There is a brand of ranch that is particularly well known there. I don't have it in front of me. Mazio's, something like that. But the Drillers will be playing as the Ranch Dippers, and the logo, you're going to want to check it out. It features a anthropomorphic piece of pizza, and the piece of pizza has hands, which makes it all the more freakish, looking jubilant as he dips himself into some ranch dip, specked with green, which I assume is some combination of cilantro and jalapenos. Some people think this is blasphemous, dipping your pizza in ranch dip. Others swear by it. Tulsa, they're obviously on board with dipping a piece of pizza in ranch dip, and the word mark also incorporates celery and looks like carrot sticks as well as wings. So if you like ranch, go to Tulsa, Oklahoma. You can put ranch on everything. We also have the West Michigan Whitecaps, who came out with the Michigan Snowbirds alternate identity. And that is a tongue-in-cheek homage or tribute to the region's population, the older population mostly, retirees, a fortunate bunch who spend their summers in Michigan but go south for the winter. So the Michigan Snowbirds is an homage to those sort of folks who are only around Michigan during the summer and, of course, baseball season. So the logo's got an old guy, his nose slathered with sunscreen, a bucket hat, a flamingo inner tube wrapped around him, a Hawaiian shirt, a cocktail in his hand, and, he's living the good life. That life seems very appealing. Fly to Florida or wherever for the winter, come back to Michigan or a place like that, hang out, watch baseball, barbecue, do fun things in good weather, then go back to Florida after all that's done. Living the dream. Maybe I can pull it off one day. But that's the Michigan Snowbirds. I believe those are the only two that have been released this week. Do I have anything else to share with you? Well, we talked about the Hill City Howlers, the new identity of the team formerly known as the Lynchburg Hillcats. They now have a Copa de la Diversion alternate identity as well, and it is the Luchadores Voladores de Hill City. And there's a strong subgenre of wrestling / luchador teams within the wide world of Copa identities. There are also wrestling Copa identities in Fort Wayne, Hudson Valley, Reading, Richmond, Sacramento. So add another one to the list with the Hill City Howlers playing as the Luchadores Voladores. Is there something else I'd like to share with you? There always is, right? There's got to be. Oh, how about this? You know about the New Hampshire Fisher Cats and how they've played as the Chicken Tenders every year for several years now, and that's because the chicken tender itself was allegedly invented in Manchester, New Hampshire, at a diner called the Puritan Backroom Diner. And the Puritan Backroom serves, original, plain, normal chicken tenders, as well as buffalo and coconut. So this year, New Hampshire will be wearing coconut chicken tender themed jerseys when they play as the Chicken Tenders. I've never had a coconut chicken tender. Have you? Oh boy, the Yard Goats, Hartford Yard Goats. You might remember the Hartford Yard Goats last year. They released a Float Your Goat concession item that was dipping a hot dog or a bratwurst, I forget specifically, into a big pint glass of goat milk. It, of course, turned out to be an April Fool's joke. So I was admittedly skeptical this week when the Hartford Yard Goats unveiled their anti-hero concession item, a grilled 2 feet all-beef hot dog with 11 powdered donuts, mustard ketchup drizzle, and sweet candied pink and blue sprinkles, all on an artisan Italian loaf bun, like a friendship bracelet, but yummy. Only available on Eras Night. So this is, even by minor league baseball standards, very ridiculous. It is essentially a 2-foot-long hot dog, which I didn't even know really existed, with 11 powdered donuts on top of it, meant to resemble a friendship bracelet. Is this an April Fool's joke? A little bit early? Maybe. But the fact they're saying they're going to serve it on their Taylor Swift-themed Eras Night means maybe for one day they will actually do this. But this is basically inedible, at least in the form they're selling it as, because who could bite into a sandwich that had inside it 2 feet of hot dog and 11 donuts? Not me, but I have celiac disease. I don't even count anyway. And, I think I'll end it right there. Except I will tell you this. Joey Chestnut, he's making the rounds of the minor league ballparks this year. He has been added to the Reading Fightin' Phils promotional schedule on May 30th, and he will be eating the team's iconic cheeseburgers that are shaped like hot dogs. So Joey Chestnut already has, of course, the hot dog eating world record, but now he will set, or attempt to set, and almost surely set, the world record for eating hot dog-shaped cheeseburgers. That's May 30th in Reading, Pennsylvania. You're going to want to check it out. All right, I've bantered enough. Thank you very much for listening. I'm lonely. See you next week, where hopefully I'm talking to somebody. Ben's Biz, out.
Hi, everybody. It's Sam here, picking up my leg of the podcast from the other two guys. I am down in Arizona right now as part of MLB Pipeline's spring training coverage. I'm actually getting on a flight to Florida tomorrow on Friday. So the day you guys get this podcast, I will be perhaps mid-flight between Phoenix and Miami, getting to enjoy a little bit of both the cactus and grapefruit leagues. But I wanted to take this opportunity for the podcast to kind of empty my notebook. I've been hitting one camp per day over the last 5 days, started on Sunday in Milwaukee Brewers camp, ending today on Thursday in Arizona Diamondbacks camp. And picking up little tidbits along the way, we're writing spring training reports that will be on MLB.com/pipeline over the next 2 weeks. So keep that out. Keep looking out for that, I should say. The San Diego Padres one is already up, and I'll touch on that in a second. But this is an opportunity for us to touch on some themes we've picked up in camp, what we're looking for, what we've seen, what we've heard from farm directors, other people around the backfields. It's really an exciting time for me, spending so much time working on top 30s, talking to people. I get FaceTime with both players and, player development directors, farm directors, just people around clubs. It's invaluable what that means to my coverage, my work, and my understanding of the game. And also it's an opportunity to check in on these players. I mean, so much of what we've written about for top 30s is about what happened in 2025. Well, now we're officially turning a new leaf over to 2026. These guys have worked on things in the offseason. Some things we've heard about, obviously, but you want to see it put into play. You hear about guys getting stronger. Okay, now is an opportunity to see what that looks like and if it's going to carry over into games, right? I've been lucky this time around. We're going a little bit later because of spring breakout, which is coming next week. But we're trying to lead right up into our coverage of spring breakout. So I have been here a little bit later in the calendar, and that's meant I've actually got to see some backfield games. Normally, it's been a lot of intra-squads that I've seen in the past, but all minor leaguers have reported. So now you're starting to see, games between the Brewers and the Reds, for example, which is what I got to see in Goodyear the other day. So anyway, all of that to say, it's been a very good trip so far, a very productive trip. You can see the fruits of that in the coming days and weeks in our spring training reports, one for each camp. I will handle 10 of them. My colleagues, Jim Callis and Jonathan Mayo, will split up the other 20. Jim has been with me here in Arizona. He will remain in Arizona. He's not going with me to Miami. And Jonathan has been going up and down the Gulf Coast to Florida, hitting all the clubs on that side. So really fun to hear what they've been talking about, writing about, hearing, and check out their coverage as well. But for now, let's go one camp per day. So starting on Sunday, I was in Milwaukee Brewers camp, and I'm just going to bring you guys a note from each of these. I'm not going to go super in depth, but something that I think you should hear, or what excites me most that I picked up. So on Sunday, this is something that I do the Milwaukee Brewers top 30 prospect list. So I had a very basic understanding of it, but to hear it from Tom Flanagan, the farm director for the Milwaukee Brewers, and to know that this is how they are stacking things was really intriguing to me. And I think, I posted it on Blue Sky. You can follow me there, Sam Dykstra, MILB. And it seemed to get Brewers fans excited. So let me just lay this out. The shortstop depth chart for the Milwaukee Brewers. Obviously, we know Joey Ortiz is going to be the opening day shortstop, extremely gifted defensive shortstop, one of the best in all of the majors. Came over a few years ago from the Baltimore Orioles. But beneath him at AAA is going to be Cooper Pratt. Cooper Pratt, the number 4 prospect in the system overall. He's a top 100 prospect, a Gold Glove winner himself in the minor leagues. Really gifted in terms of having the right instincts, being in the right place at the right time. He stands out because he's 6'4", so he's not one of your smaller shortstops. He's kind of made in more of the Corey Seager model, but is actually receiving his best grades defensively. So he'll be at AAA. At AA Biloxi will be Jesus Made, the number 3 overall prospect in baseball. Longtime listeners of the show know that I am a big Jesus Made fan. I think he's one of the best prospects in baseball, but he's extremely twitchy. Reached AA Biloxi last year at just 18 years old. He's going to be 18 still on opening day. A lot of people have compared his track through the minor leagues to Jackson Churrio's. I think there is a decent chance that he mimics it to some degree, but also pushes the AAA quicker than Churrio did. And, we'll see how that goes. But for now, Jesus Made will be the opening day shortstop for the Milwaukee Brewers at AA Biloxi. At High A, Wisconsin, will be Luis Pena, who's the number 2 prospect in the system, another top 100 guy, somebody who they've pushed extremely aggressively, and he just doesn't have the results that Made did at High A, Wisconsin last year. So this is going to allow them, after those guys playing alongside each other for so long, somebody has to move over to third base, or Made will get some time at second base. Now both of those guys can become the priority shortstops and grow at, obviously one of the most premium positions on the field separately. Pena doesn't have to be in Made's shadow anymore. He's an extremely good hitter, extremely fast runner, somebody who's always going to push the envelope on that side. I think he might end up being a future third baseman more than a shortstop because he's got the arm for it. But somebody who's extremely promising. So he'll be at High A. And then at Single A, Wilson. I'm very proud of myself for not saying Single A, Carolina, of course, as we've said on the show. The Single A affiliate will be going to Wilson in 2026 for the Milwaukee Brewers. That is going to be Brady Ebel. Now, if Ebel's name sounds a little familiar, it's because he is the son of Dodgers third base coach and current Team USA third base coach Dino Ebel. He was the 32nd overall pick in last year's draft. He played on a Corona high school team that also had top 2025 picks Seth Hernandez and Billy Carlson. So this is a guy who's been pretty famous on the draft circuit over the last few years, for the class of 2025. The Brewers end up getting him with the pick that they got for losing Willie Adames in free agency. They signed him for $2.75 million. He's going to be their shortstop at Single A. A lot of decent tools there. The arm is what stands out the most. From what I've heard, he's kind of like a second coach on the field or another coach on the field. I wonder where that comes from, right? Again, the son of Dino Ebel. But that's really, really stacked. And if I were to build an organization, right, you would want to be stacked at positions like shortstop, catcher, and center field. The Milwaukee Brewers, we named the number 1 farm system in baseball just a few weeks ago. This is a big reason why. They are especially deep at exactly where you want to be deep. So that was on Sunday. Monday was San Diego Padres camp in Peoria, Arizona. And the one I'll highlight here, and somebody who you're actually going to hear from here in a little bit, is Cruz Schoolcraft, their first-round pick from last year's draft. I got to watch him pitch in an inter-squad game there on the backfields, a couple innings from him. He was sitting 94, 96. He is not difficult to miss on the backfields because he is 6'8". And if you can believe it, he was a two-way player all the way through high school in Oregon. He both pitched and was a first baseman. And I talked to him, again, you're going to hear this interview here in a little bit. He was somebody who thought he could do both basically right up through his high school career. And then the draft was coming, and it was very clear that his future was on the mound. I think he has a very mature approach for going from a two-way status to a one-way status and why he prefers to do this. But the biggest reason why, at the end of the day, is that he is a talented pitcher. He has extreme extension out of that 6'8" frame. He was sitting 94, 96 on the backfields when I saw him. His changeup has always been really good, and a lot of that actually comes from his size. His hand just kind of eats the baseball and just makes that changeup really, really good. He's fiddled with it over the years, but he was telling me, like, the reason I throw a good changeup is that when I was really young, I could just wrap my hand around the ball, kill spin, and it seemed to really work for me. He was working a lot on a slider. That's something that's happened a lot in the offseason, trying to find a consistent breaking ball look for him. He doesn't want like a big sweeper necessarily, something that he can control. Saw a little bit of it. I think it's still going to need work, but everything is looking pretty promising there for Cruz Schoolcraft. And he's still only 18 too. He's turning 19 in April. So we'll see how things work out for Cruz Schoolcraft in his first full season. He's going to be starting the year at Single A Lake Elsinore. He got a taste of that after getting drafted last year. Very, very brief time in Lake Elsinore, so he'll head back there. The Padres, as we know, can get aggressive with the guys they think are supremely talented. He is one of them. I'm not going to put him in the same bucket that they used to believe in Ethan Salas with, and Leo DeVries, obviously, before him. I don't think we're going to see Cruz Schoolcraft get pushed extremely aggressively, but if he pitches like he could in the Cal League, could he be in Fort Wayne by July? I don't think that's out of the question, and that's pretty aggressive for a guy who was in high school just 1 year ago. So keep an eye out for Cruz Schoolcraft, and like I said, you'll hear more from him later in the show. Then after that, after San Diego Padres camp, was Kansas City Royals camp in Surprise, Arizona. And here's one that I'll throw out. I mean, they have a bunch of interesting prospects. Blake Mitchell hit a home run at a plus 100, it was a touch above 114 miles an hour exit velocity the other day. That's really promising for somebody who was dealing with a broken hamate a year ago. Usually that saps some power out of your game, and it seemed to be the case for him for much of last year. And then he hit one at over 116 miles an hour, a homer, in the Arizona Fall League. So I thought, that's interesting. It seems to be coming back. Now he's doing it 114 plus in the Cactus League. So that's interesting. But the name I'm going to throw out is actually a little bit more of a sleeper. It's Justin Lampkin, who we have as the number 15 prospect in the Kansas City Royals organization. He was the 71st overall pick in last year's draft out of Texas A&M. Really interesting look. He's a left-hander. He's 6'4". He looks the part, right? But he didn't have great velocity at Texas A&M. The fastball was only 91 to 93 miles an hour normally. But he, as Annie Rogers mentioned in her report on him coming into the year, he showed up to spring in 2026 with a little bit more velo. I got to see that on the backfields. I saw 2 innings out of him. He was around 94, 95 and consistently sitting that. Now, that's 2 innings. It's not 6. So we have to see him hold it. And it's also March, right? It's not May or June. Can he hold on to this velo deeper into his first full season? We'll see. But it's certainly promising the way he was pitching with more velo. A lot of his fellow Royals farmhands were gathered around me to watch that one. There were a lot of oohs and ahs because he was hitting his spots. Struck out the side in the first inning that I saw him pitch. He was flipping in sliders extremely well, mixing in curveballs and changeups. Especially when he threw a changeup, I think it took everybody aback because everything was moving really well glove side, or at least his off speed was. So for him to throw in something that was arm side was a little interesting to everybody in attendance. But, speaking to Mitch Meyer, the farm director for the Kansas City Royals, he circled Lampkin before I even knew he was pitching that day. And he's like, hey, listen, there's a lot to like with this guy. And from what we've seen with this velo bump and where the breaking balls are, especially that slider, this is how our breakout starts. So keep an eye out for Justin Lampkin as he begins his first full season in the Kansas City organization. Moving on from Kansas City, we are going to go to the Cincinnati Reds organization in Goodyear, Arizona. That one was interesting because the Reds last year with the 9th overall pick took Steele Hall. Steele Hall is somebody from Alabama. He actually reclassified after a visit to the University of Tennessee. He was supposed to be part of the 2026 draft class. He was 17 on draft day in 2025. Tennessee, then under Tony Vitello, said, hey, would you reconsider bumping up a year? We could get you on this campus. We could make use of you. It would be really interesting if you could come with us for the 2026 season rather than the 2027 season. So I talked to Steele Hall from Goodyear. He said his parents worked really hard to make sure everything in the reclassification process worked. He was able to do that. And then all the pro scouts showed up and everybody realized, wait, this guy could go pretty high in the draft. He may never make it to Knoxville. Lo and behold, the Reds take him with the 9th overall pick. They said at the time that they thought, given Steele Hall his plus run, he may have been the fastest guy in the draft last year. The fact that he can really defend at shortstop, seems like a guy who should stick there basically at every level, that he could have been the first overall pick in the 2026 draft. And when you have a talent like that waiting for you at 9, you don't want to let it slip. Now, there's going to be a lot of development here to go still. He's somebody who needs to add strength. He's 5'10", 180. That's what he's listed at. He's still somebody who looks pretty bouncy, but still needs to fill out the uniform a good bit. He's mentioned that. The Reds have mentioned that it's still very early. He's 18 years old now. He's not going to be 19 until July. So tons of projection there remaining for Steele Hall. But the thing I want to highlight here is that the Reds typically, or at least recently, when they've had high draft picks as shortstops, and I include Tyson Lewis there, and I include Sammy Staffura, who is now with the Pittsburgh Pirates organization. Both of those guys started out in the Arizona Complex League. They were held back a little bit. Now, neither of those guys were the 9th overall pick in the draft, like Steele Hall is. So when you have somebody that's supremely talented, do you push them a little bit more aggressively? Typically, we see first-round picks at least make full season ball. So that's what I would expect, is that he would open up the year at Single A Daytona, except Tyson Lewis, who's the number 5 prospect in the Reds organization, also plays shortstop, ended last year at Single A Daytona, had some swing and miss issues, wasn't playing like a guy who needs to move to High A Dayton, at least to open up 2026. So how does that work when you have 2 of your most talented prospects share the same position? Well, from what I've heard and from what I've seen, because I got to see this happen on the backfields, Tyson Lewis has been getting reps at third base. He would slide over from shortstop to third base. He did that in instructs last year. He gets an above average grade for his arm tool, so he could certainly handle that. It's not as good a fielding tool overall for him at short like it is for Steele Hall. Steele Hall gets 60 on the 20 to 80 scale for his glove. Tyson Lewis just a 50, so it's easier to move him. Now, I'm not saying anything settled, but just reading some tea leaves here, it certainly seems like the move would be start both of those guys in the Florida State League. Tyson Lewis at third base, Steele Hall at shortstop. Tyson Lewis can get, a start or 2 a week at short still, but that's how you get both of those guys on the same field. And I think that would be really promising for the Reds, really fascinating to see how that goes. And again, you look at those Brewers that we were talking about earlier, the good organizations are really deep at those premium positions. So the way it was put to me by Jeremy Farrell, the farm director for the Reds, it's a challenge, but it is a good challenge and one they're willing to meet head on. And again, you start the year there. That doesn't mean you're going to end the year there. Maybe Tyson Lewis hits his way out of the Florida State League in just a month. He goes to High A Dayton, and both of those guys are playing shortstop full-time by June. So keep an eye on that. But the way it looks right now, that's how you can make those puzzle pieces fit. And then the final stop here that I mentioned earlier is with the Arizona Diamondbacks. And Arizona, the note I'll share here, and again, this is something you will hear here in a few minutes, is from Ryan Waldschmidt, their top prospect, their first rounder from 2 years ago out of the University of Kentucky. He was actually taken with a pick that D-backs got because Corbin Carroll earned them a prospect promotion incentive pick. So that was pretty good business for them. They promote Corbin Carroll to the majors. He ends up winning Rookie of the Year. They get a pick for that. They turn that into Ryan Waldschmidt, who becomes an outfielder who is their top prospect. The wheels keep on turning. But Ryan Waldschmidt, somebody coming out of Kentucky, really patient approach, above average hit tool, above average power, above average speed, was taking all the boxes last year at High A Hillsboro and Double A Amarillo. Ended the year with 18 homers, 29 steals, and 96 walks in 134 games. But because he is somebody who dealt with a torn ACL before his time at Kentucky, before his junior year at Kentucky, that he actually suffered that in the Cape Cod League. And so he was DHing for a bit there, and then he was also playing left field because they didn't want to push him too much into center. And then he gets drafted by the Diamondbacks, and he goes to High A Hillsboro, and he has to play next to Drew Jones. And Drew Jones is somebody you don't move out of center field because he's just so gifted defensively. So he was mostly left. Then he moves up to Double A Amarillo in the middle of the season. They start trying him out at center field, and it seems to go pretty well. I mean, everything I've heard from the Diamondbacks is that they were really enthused by how good of a defender Ryan Waldschmidt was in center field. I can't remember if I mentioned it on the show. I've mentioned it in a few places. I've written about it. I know I said it on MLB Network. I thought Waldschmidt was a dark horse candidate to make the D-backs opening day roster just because, Corbin Carroll's been hurt. They're trying out Jordan Lawler in center field. Alec Thomas is moving to a corner. There's enough shifting pieces where I thought, Ryan Waldschmidt might not be somebody who needs much time at AAA. Maybe they just kick him up there now, given the approach and given all the tools. That didn't work out that way. He's been reassigned to minor league camp, likely opening the year with AAA Reno. But from what I've heard, he's going to be a priority center fielder with Reno. He's not going to be in left field like he was with Hillsboro. I'm sure he's going to be rotating to the corners a little bit here and there. But they think he could be a center fielder. And again, I'm going to bring you guys an interview here in a little bit to hear Ryan Waldschmidt talk about that transition to center field. But I think that's really fascinating. If Ryan Waldschmidt can stick in center with that power, with that speed, we have him right now in the top 100 at, let me just get this absolutely accurate here, number 59. But if he's that package as a center fielder instead of a left fielder, he's probably a top 35 prospect in baseball. But we have to see it stick. We have to see him translate to the AAA level. Obviously, Reno is extremely hitter-friendly. He could put up some absolute numbers there. But that's pretty interesting from my POV. We'll see how it goes for Jordan Lawler, right? He's had a really strong spring. He's been tied for the major league lead in spring training homers for a time there, or at least as of recording. Which is really interesting. But he's a shortstop by trade who is trying out center field. Ryan Waldschmidt is at least an outfielder by trade who would be trying out center. The D-backs will have options. They need options. They're going to have options. So watch that space. So I've done enough teasing of these interviews, right? So let's tee them up here. The first one will be with Cruz Schoolcraft, the top Padres prospect. Everything I've already mentioned about him. Really good fastball in the mid-90s already. Touched 99 in the Bridge League last year. Has that changeup working on a slider. Spoke with him for about 10 minutes from Peoria. He will be up first, and then we're going to keep it in the NL West with my chat with Ryan Waldschmidt about that time on the Major League side of Arizona's spring training and that transition to center field and so much more. So first up, me and Cruz Schoolcraft, followed by me with Ryan Waldschmidt. Catch you guys next week. All right, Cruz, let's start with this being your first spring training. What has the experience been like so far?
Yeah, it's been hectic, but it's been super fun. It's been cool getting to meet all these new guys and going from a high school level to this it's been challenging. Just being around guys that challenge you every day. So I'm really grateful for that. But it's been a little hectic, and it's also just been a great time. So,
what's been the most eye-opening part of the experience?
The most eye-opening part is that, as a pitcher, everyone throws hard. Everyone can do a lot of things. It's just seeing what separates myself from them is something I gotta continue to learn. But yeah, like going from a low-level high school experience to this, it's been just seeing all the talent that's here and how hard it is to really play this game. So.
Yeah, and what have you learned about yourself as you've gotten to see more different pitch types and types of pitchers in general?
Yeah, I mean, I've learned that for me, like, always been just like stay consistent to my routines, my daily routines in the weight room, because if you put in that consistent work throughout the week, it sets yourself up for your start day, and so you can go out there and compete. But yeah, just consistently trying to learn every day and get better every day. So.
Yeah, and you got to go through a true off season for the first time. What was that like, and what were your points of focus?
Yeah, I mean, first full off season without hitting. My main points of focus was just put on some weight, and then also develop a slider, and keep also developing my changeup. So it's been great. Slider's gotten a lot better. Been able to get consistent shapes with it, and also put on some weight. Got a little more mobile, a little more explosive. So just the first full off season as a pitcher has been good. I've learned a lot about my body and how to use it and how to recover. So
I was going to ask about that slider. What shape are you exactly looking for, and what do you think fits you best?
Yeah, I'm just looking for something that I can throw consistently. More not sweepy, but also just something I can throw ahead in the count to get in the count, and then also something I can throw later in the count. Just want to make my pitch shapes consistent, and I didn't really throw it growing up, so getting here and learning about it and really working on it has helped, and it's been starting to get more consistent. Yeah.
And when you say less sweepy, do you want more gyro shape, or what do you mean by that?
No, I just want something that I can throw that doesn't have big shape, something I can throw hard, and really get out front. I feel like if I try to manipulate the ball a lot, either it's not consistent, or I try to create the movement instead of just throwing it like a fastball, or instead of throwing it with conviction, and that's where I get like the more consistent shapes. So.
Was there a grip that you found that seemed to work best for you, or like an arm angle? How'd you find it?
No, it was more of I just played around with a bunch of different grips, found the right one, and just kind of stuck with it. Obviously, there's going to be days where you don't have some of your pitches, so just trying to understand that one day without a good slider that day doesn't mean it's a bad pitch. Just learning that, just like staying consistent with it. Yeah, I just found like a good grip that worked, and kind of stuck with it. So.
What grip did you find, and how did you find it?
I mean, it was just really just messing around with playing catch with it. Just kind of across the horseshoe, a little bit of pressure on my middle finger, and then yeah, I mean, I really can't show you without.
Right. Yeah. No, fair enough. Yeah. And you brought up the changeup. I mean, that was something that excited a lot of scouts coming out of high school for you. That's something not a lot of high school arms have. Mm-hmm. How did you develop that pitch?
Growing up, I rarely just threw fastball, changeup. Didn't really have a slide. Didn't really throw anything other than that. So growing up, I just learned how to throw it, and it just became a really good pitch. And once my hands got bigger and I got a little bigger, started getting more depth and more fade to it. So yeah, it was just more of like a thing that I have been developing since I've been 8. So yeah.
Was there some changeup you were looking at when you were 8 years old that you were trying to throw, or
I was just putting my whole hand on the ball and throwing it, and then obviously the older you get, the more you modify it and change it. So it kind of just turned into like a circle change that now I can throw whenever I want. So yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of when you were young, I mean, you decided to reclassify to get to the 2025 draft. Take me through that process and decision making.
It wasn't for the draft. It was honestly just to get out of Oregon baseball for 1 year earlier. I just felt like if I went to school or got drafted, challenging myself a year earlier, giving me that extra year, under my belt. And 2, if I went to college, I'd have been there for 3 years, which is probably, better than being there for 2 or, so I just think I needed to get challenged and needed to get pushed out of my comfort zone a little bit. And that's honestly why my family and I did it. But yeah, it was a great decision, probably one of the best decisions I've made. So yeah.
And what was it like going through the draft process last year, especially, like you said, as a two-way guy who ends up pitching only?
Yeah, it was just kind of let it happen the way it's supposed to happen. It wasn't stressful, but it was definitely something that that I obviously had to go through. It was a great experience. Was there with my whole family, so that was awesome. I know my dad and my parents and my mom have sacrificed a lot, so it's been a great, it paid off for them, and yeah.
When did you realize that pitching only was going to be the way forward?
I think it was when right after the high school baseball season. I wanted to hit, but I knew that the better side of my game was on the mound, and I think hitting and pitching puts a lot of stress on the body. So I just think I needed it. I just not that I lost the love for hitting. I just felt like I got to a point where I'm like, I'm way better at pitching. So let me just kind of focus in on this, and I think pitching is the fastest way to get me to the big leagues. So yeah.
And we've seen a lot of two-way guys take off once they focus on that same, like Nolan McLean, for example, with the Mets. What do you feel like allows you to potentially take off now that you have that singular focus?
Yeah. Can you say that real quick?
Oh, no, yeah. Well, just now that you're singularly focused on pitching, what do you feel like you're allowed to focus more on and help improve on, especially?
Yeah. I think it's just more of, one, body's able to recover better. That means I'm more fresh when I step onto the mound. And 2, just putting all my thought into pitching and not having to focus on going to the cage after I do my catch play or vice versa. So I think it's just more of I get that focus of just pitching and really trying to maximize that and not having a bunch of different things moving me in a bunch of different directions. And it gives me a lot more time to recover. I think that's one thing that I really needed was time to recover from playing 3 games a week and pitching in the first one and then hitting in the next 2. Right. So gives my time that rest, gives me more time to learn about the other hitters I'm facing. I think it was a really good decision, and I know that I know eventually it's gonna pay off. So,
and I feel like I know the answer to this question, but how would Crew Schoolcraft the hitter go against Crew Schoolcraft the pitcher?
If I was hitting against myself, I would.
Or maybe the other way around. Yeah, how would you attack you as a hitter, I guess?
Well, if I was hitting against, or if I was pitching against myself, I would throw fastballs in, and then I don't know, throw a slider off that maybe. But if I was hitting against myself, I would sit fastball, and then kind of lay off everything down in the zone. So.
And I know you got a taste of Lake Elsinore at the end of last year. What are your expectations for a first full season and a longer experience there in the Cal League?
Expectations is hopefully make 22 starts this year. Definitely make sure stick to my routines. It's a long season, so it's going to be not challenging. It's definitely going to be challenging, but making sure I take my low days low and my high days high. As a young pitcher, and as a lot of young pitchers, when they feel good on a low day, they want to stretch it out and throw more than they need to, and that can cause fatigue. So just making sure I'm very diligent with my routine, and just consistently just stay disciplined to what I have to do, and also make sure I'm eating well. So I gotta feel myself well for my start days on whatever day that is.
Yeah, and you've been here at the Peoria complex for a few months now, obviously, and after the draft, working out and playing for Lake Elsinore. What have you learned about the Padres and why they're a good fit for you developmentally?
Yeah, I've learned. They've kind of let me do my own thing for the most part. to be honest, the guys in the weight room in the training room have been a huge help. If I need to change something in my routine, or I feel like I need to change something in my routine, they can do that right away. And there's a lot of guys here that I can go to because I trust. Just because I've built a very good relationship with with most of these people here. So I feel like it's a great organization to challenge you, to push you. So yeah.
Great. All right, Ryan, this being your second spring training, you got to spend so much time on the major league side. Just take me through what that experience has been like going through this a second time, and somebody who was on the major league side for so long.
Yeah, it was great. Just getting comfortable with the guys, getting to know them on a personal level, not just on the field, and just being comfortable in the locker room with them, I think is huge. When it comes to eventually making your debut and playing with these guys, you got to build that foundation first. But it's just been great working with all the coaches, all the players, just getting to know everyone. And I think it's really going to help when it comes to getting onto the field together, because I think that's a big part of it. Just having that trust and that communication prior. And, it's just a great experience. I learned a lot from those guys, and I'm definitely going to take that with me wherever I go through this season.
Yeah, what kind of questions are you asking guys?
A lot of it is just like approach stuff as a hitter. Facing guys that are top tier pitchers. Like, I just want to pick their brain on what they're thinking when they step in the box, because everyone's different. Everyone has different strengths, weaknesses, obviously, but just kind of getting a feel of what they're looking for when they go up there, just to kind of create those thoughts in my head on what I'm going to do when I get in the box. A lot of stuff is just how to just be comfortable up there, how to slow the game down. Obviously you can make the moment as big as you want to make it. It's a big stage, so if you look at it that way, you can put yourself in a little bit of a tough situation, because you want to perform so much, like you feel like you need to do something so grand because it's such a big stage, but then also it's the same game that you play your entire life. So if you can make it that way and you can continue to look at it that way, I think it helps a lot.
Yeah, when you're asking about approach stuff, is there anything you've already adjusted based off what you've heard or what you've seen?
Yeah, we talked a lot about obviously hitters counts, like early in minor leagues, even in college, if you had a 2-0, 3-1 count, you were getting a fastball majority of the time. And it's like, okay, you're going to get your fastball, don't miss. Now it's more, the pitcher's most likely not throwing you a fastball in that count because they're expecting you to be looking for that. So I think a lot of it is more of just being ready to hit in all counts and just looking for mistakes. I think a lot of people make their money and do their damage when it comes to hitting mistakes, and I think that's just the biggest thing that I've taken away, is kind of obviously having your set approach, but then being able to adjust when you recognize mistakes and do your damage there.
Mm-hmm. And you're somebody who's been reassigned to minor league camp. What was the message after that of like, hey, here's what you need to work on to get back here?
Yeah, a lot of it was just continue to just working hard and just polishing the skill set. They told me they love the tool set that I have, and just continue to keep building it. Gonna go play in the minor leagues and just refine those skills and hopefully be up there pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what was your approach to a second offseason, getting time at Hillsborough and Amarillo last year? Once you're at AA, you're pretty close as it is. What was different this offseason than the first one?
Yeah, I think I had a good feel of what I needed to do, a good routine, like good base that I built throughout the season. I think just continuing to just do that routine and kind of look to get as close to perfection as possible on the little things that make me the player I am. And I think that's just a big thing that had a lot more clarity going into this offseason. I think last year it was kind of figuring out what makes me the best version of myself. And I think this offseason I was able to kind of pinpoint certain things that are going to make me better as a player. So I think that's the biggest thing, was just clarity on what I needed to do to become better.
Yeah, what was the clearest thing then?
Yeah, I worked a lot on just pitch shape stuff. Obviously I ended up buying a pitching machine when I got home for the offseason because, my dad can't throw as much as he used to, but and just try to work different shapes, a lot of teams kind of structure their pitching staff based on different angles, different pitches, different slots. Nobody necessarily comes in looking the same as the guy that was just prior to them. So just kind of getting comfortable with all those different pitch types and different pitch shapes, and just looking to have that confidence when I see those pitches to know that I can do damage to those still, instead of just kind of going in and just hitting fastballs all the time, because fastball is obviously the pitch that I want to hit all the time, but just kind of building that foundation on those other pitches and just having that confidence when I get in the box to hit those.
Was there anybody specific breaking ball you were typing in a lot, like Yamamoto or like a Blake Snell curveball or something like that?
No, nothing in specific. I did work a lot on 12-6 curveballs, though. I feel like that is one of the pitches that I struggle the most with, and I just wanted to kind of build a stronger base on that pitch and just have that confidence, because that's a tough pitch to hit. You really got to be on time for that one, and just based on the movement it has, you really can't have much room for error. So just kind of having the confidence and just knowing that I can hit that pitch and do damage to it is the reason why I worked that one so much.
Yeah, and you have one of my more interesting batting stances in the minors, in terms of you just seem to fire. Like, you're not a big load guy. It's just, here's the pitch and I'm going to get it with that bat speed. Take me through why that seems to work for you.
Yeah, for me, it's all about just simplicity. I think a lot of people in any batting stance, we all get to the same point, at a same launching point. Everyone's foot comes down, everyone's foot lands, their hands are set, and then you go to your swing. So I really just kind of try to condense it as much as possible. Once, obviously I realized I had the strength and I had the bat speed to still do damage without having to necessarily generate all of it. So once I kind of figured that out, I really went back to just kind of simplifying it and trying to get to the spot that everyone looks to get to as early as possible. And I think that really helps when it comes to pitch recognition and just being on time for fastballs. I think that's my approach always, is be ready for the fastball and just to adjust to the off speed. And I think when I'm in the position in my stance, the reason I set up the way I do is because that allows me to be loaded early enough by the time the pitcher's releasing the ball to really get the full distance to recognize the pitch. And I think that also plays into why I walk so much and why I work counts and I have good strike zone discipline, is because I'm able to see the ball for the full 90 feet.
Yeah, makes sense. And then on the defensive side, you got to see a lot of center field with Amarillo after the promotion. I know you got a little bit of taste of it here in the Cactus League. Just take me through what that switch is like and how it might open up some avenues for you to Arizona.
Yeah, I always had the plan to end up being in center field at some point, whether it was in college or now. I played a little bit of center field my freshman year. Went into Kentucky, ended up playing left field. We had a pretty good center fielder my first year. And then I ended up tearing my ACL. The plan was to play center field for my draft year, but that ended up kind of all getting changed up when I ended up tearing my ACL. They were like, we don't want you necessarily doing as much running, just trying to preserve it a little bit. So I ended up playing the corner again. And obviously, first years in the minor leagues, I was with Drew Jones, and I don't know if you get a better center fielder than that. So
tough to move that guy to the corner, yeah.
You're not necessarily moving him around. So I played a lot of left field and right field early, and then once I got up to Amarillo, they asked if I was able to play center, and I was like, of course, I'm ready to play center field, and I was excited for that, and I really tried to just take it and run with it and see how I did. I think it allows me to use my baseball IQ a little bit more, some anticipation aspects of being able to see where the catcher's setting up, like working with the pitcher, thinking about the counts, what pitches he might throw. The corners are really reactionary, so it's a little bit different than when you're in center field. Like when I'm in left field, I really can't see where the catcher's set up. I can anticipate what pitch is coming, but it's tough to see really where the location is. But in center field, I have a good view of that, and I think it allows me to kind of use my baseball IQ and then anticipate where the ball is going to be hit. And I think I did that, and I think it allows me to show my aggression as a baseball player. I like to play pretty free and loose, so I think in center field it allowed me to be way more aggressive because you control the outfield at that point. So it was a great experience, and I really hope to keep building on center field.
Yeah, and as somebody who's probably starting the year at AAA Reno, what are your expectations for going there, playing in the Pacific Coast League? Obviously an extreme hitter's park, but you got one in Amarillo too.
Yeah. I think it's just huge to emphasize not trying to do too much. when you get placed in these parks or these certain leagues where the ball flies, it could be really easy to try and go out of yourself and try and hit home runs and try and lift the ball. But I think just kind of sticking to your strengths. I think the strength I have and my ability to hit the ball on the barrel, I think the home runs will come. So as long as I can stick with that and just continue to look to hit line drives in the gaps, I think the home runs will come by accident. And for the outfield, I'm excited because, in that league, people are going to get the ball elevated. They're going to try and hit the ball in the air. So it'll be a time for me to make a lot more plays. So that'll be very exciting, and I'm looking forward to that.
I've never heard an outfielder put it that way. Like when it's a hitter's league like that, it's more opportunities for you. That's
yeah,
good.
Definitely.
And are you somebody who allows yourself to think about what that first major league at bat will look like and what you'll be thinking in that moment? And when you do, what goes through your mind?
Yeah, I think it's huge to visualize prior to anything happening. Obviously. Just putting yourself in that position mentally and just being able to be ready for it. Don't necessarily be caught by surprise when something like that happens. But yeah, I think I've built the mentality of kind of keeping things pretty simple and just being real with a lot of stuff. So I think when I get there, just try not make the moment too big. It's going to be the same thing as stepping in the box, whether it's in Amarillo or Reno, Chase Field. It's all the same thing. It's the same routine. I try and think of it as like a nameless, faceless opponent, whether it's Scooble on the mound or one of the guys here on the backfield, just kind of having that same mentality. And nerves are obviously going to be part of it. It's your first major league at bat, but to try and limit those as much as possible and just kind of allow yourself to do your thing and be the player that you are, I think is going to be huge.
All right, we'll end on this one. Who's the toughest pitcher you've faced so far?
I faced a couple good pitchers. Obviously, I faced Glasnow the other day, and I told you about the 12-6 curveball
right
on that. Ended up striking out on that pitch, but that was probably the toughest pitch I've seen. There was a guy for Seattle. I don't know his first name. His last name was Vargas, though.
Okay.
And he was really good. I thought he was a really good pitcher to face. I mean, he's throwing 100-mile-per-hour sinker with 95, 96 cutter and like a 92-mile-per-hour slider. So it was good. I think he was probably someone that I thought was one of the tougher at-bats that I faced. I got to face a lot of really cool guys too, though, in my early time in this camp. So it's been awesome.
That's it. We've done enough. You've listened to us enough. That'll do it for this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast. For Benjamin Hill, for Sam Dykstra, and all the rest, my name is Tyler Vaughn. Thanks for hanging out with us. Back to normal-ish next week, and we'll catch you then.